we are ready to stitch this out now. So what I'm going to do, I have my jump stitches off, and I'm going to click on OK. Now I am all set. So what I'm going to do, let me turn my camera over here. I am going to pull my bobbin thread up. Now, since I have not quilted yet on this go round, I'm going to use a pair of tweezers to pull up my bobbin thread because it'll be really short and I won't be able to get, I have big fingers and I won't be able to get, that's why I use a tweezer this time. I'm going to press needle down and needle up, and I'm just pull that thread up. Just pull the bobbin thread up, and I'm going to grasp it with my tweeze. You can see there's my upper thread. Here's my bobbin thread, and I'm just going to hold on to them. Okay. And then I'm going to push my tie off button down. No, I'm not. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the start button. And now I already have my first jump thread, but that's okay. It's going to tie that off there. I'm going to stop it so I can pull these two threads. Now, I'm going to take care of those two thread ends right here in the very beginning before we get going. This is what I call my quilter's magic juice. It's called fray check. And this is magic juice for quilters. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a drop at the very beginning of my stitching. Let me change hands here. I want you to be able to see this. One drop there, and one drop where the bobbin thread came up. I'm going to let that soak in for just a sec. And then I'm going to trim it flush with my quilt. One and two. And now we're ready to go. Now I can finish quilting. And it's going to stitch out that design on the quilt. Excuse me. I bring the camera closer. You can see that one stitching out there. And it's just stitching out all those beautiful circles and pebbles. You're getting a good look at my little glittery metallic thread here too. I love metallic thread. And we'll get a better look at that once that's done. Now you could save this if you wanted to, but really there's no need because as you can see, that image isn't perfectly square and lined up. So you don't have to worry about getting your quilt inside the hoop perfectly square when you use this method, because it'll come out in the end. We're just stitching, drawing our boxes in the seam lines to fill in the quilting. This is called quilting by the piece. Now, if I had a 6-inch block, that's what this square right here is. This is a 6-inch square right here. If that was a piece block, that would be quilting by the block. Okay, you see my little pin. I actually pinned this on top of my ironing board. I just layered my quilt back, my batting, my top, and I just did some quick safety pins, some quick straight pins in it. I love to quilt with wool batting. This is wool batting. It has a nice loft. It gives a really sculptured look to your quilting. And this modified 9 patch is super easy to make and super fast. And it's probably 80% done. It's almost there, about another minute. You can see it counting down the minutes and the stitches. So that one little block had almost 2,000 stitches in it. So it just said finished embroidering. I wish it said finished quilting because that's what we're doing. So I'm just going to click on OK. I'm going to click on OK when the mouse moves. There we go. Hello, mouse. Oh, you're not happy with that. Okay, there we go. Okay, so done with that one. So now I'm just going to hit the return button and go up here and hit my home button, click on OK, and go back to IQ. See, there's my top thread right there. It did not cut I turned my thread cutter off. So when I take this out of this hoop and rehoop it, that's when I'll trim all of these stitches. It's all good. That is how we prevent having knots on the back of our quilt. And I know y'all know what I'm talking about. So by doing that, let me show you the back of this quilt. It's a work in progress. I did this using the same method. This one does not have any knots on its back right here. But look at the beautiful quilting. This was all quilted at 100% setting. But there are 0 knots on the back of this quilt. Next, we're going to go back into IQ, and we have another square of fabric that's inside the hoop that I want to quilt on this one. Okay. So, yes, we're going to have to scan it in again, but that's okay, because I was a dummy and didn't save it. But I actually like, every time I've swapped from IQ to embroidery and then do a stitch out, I actually do like to rescan my image, because as it quilts, it can actually shrink down a little bit. And that way you make sure you have the most accurate image in your machine. Okay, so there we go. That's all scanned in. And now we are going to do this black square, but we're going to use a slightly different technique to outline it, because there is more than one way to do this. So next, we're going to go back here into this menu, our line properties menu, and I'm going to put on no sew. But this time I am going to use this line right here. Okay, we're going to try this one out. And I'm going to zoom in to 200%. Actually, I'm going to go back to 100 on this one. I'm going to darken it up a little bit so I can see it a little better. And we're going to try to do it this way. So what we're going to do, we are going to hold down our line on the seam line, drag it across. And I'm not going to match it exactly in the corner. Now, I'll be able to see it better this way. See how I have my black line extending past the corners of the dark charcoal square? It's okay, because those lines are not going to will not stitch out. I'm just defining an area. It's much faster to outline this way than the way I just did it on for the purple square of fabric. So I'm going to do it again, here, down to here. And see, I can rotate that to make it line up on the seam line. Then I'm going to do it over here as well. And just line it up. And one more horizontal. Right there. So let me get a closer view for you for this one. As you can see, it was so much quicker to do it that way, right? So when you have squares and rectangles, it's super easy. The way I just did it is if you have a lot of curved lines to go around, it's better to use that for curves, like that Hoffman Dream Big Flower panel. When you have all those curved shapes that you want to draw on, you have to do it. You just can't do it with this tool, because it's not going to work easy. It will take you forever to do it. So that's cool, but there's another way to do it as well. So I'm going to just back out. 4. Go back into the menu settings for the line properties. And I'm going to click on the first pencil this time, and I'm going to freehand draw it. Okay. So when you do it this way, you can do it this way. You definitely want to zoom in for this. Let's go up to 400. Because, let's get up. I always start in my upper left corner. It just makes it easier for me. And you can see our previous stitching line that we did in the last session. I want this to go right on top of that previous stitching line. So on this one, I would put my pointer on top of that and drag it over, holding down my mouse button. And then if I let go, I can start doing this way. I'm just going to follow that pointer right down the stitching line. If you do really long lines and you need to like redo a small part, it's easier to do a series of little short lines because it's easier to back out of it. I'm just going to back out of all of that. So you see how that works. So that's and if I did the second pencil, that really won't work for this, but we'll just look at it and see. You'd have to lower your zoom level to back down to 100 so you can see the entire shape and draw it. It's drawing in a red line. And if I stop, I can stop and then reposition. But what it did, as soon as you let go of it, it's going to go right back to its starting point and draw a second line. I don't use that one a lot for this purpose. The ones I use the most are this one and this one. Straight line, this one's great for curves. And I'll show you when I put that Hoffman Dream panel in how great it is for curves. So let's just draw our line for the second piece of fabric. I'm just going to back out of that. Okay. And now we will draw our next lines. Oops. I did not select the correct button. Let's do that one. There you go. And then we'll reverse. Okay. And now I can select it. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to draw that one on there. And this is the one where I can angle it just by moving my pointer. And down here. And over this way. And on this side. Now, I'm going to lighten up the background image so you can see how I went outside of the box. Check it out. It's almost like a modified tic-tac-toe screen. So what happens is these will not stitch out. So it's okay to do that in this instance. So now let's bring our image back up and we're going to go to our region properties, click on a fill pattern, hit the select button. Now this one just has a small scroll design in it. So I'm going to do one of the more elaborate patterns in this one. Okay. Right there. And let's see which one do we want for this. Let's see what one of the new ones look like. I really like this. This has feathers and pearls in it. Let's do this one here. This is number 34. Click on OK. We're going to just hit activate our fill bucket. Click on inside. And then we're going to hit next. And I like that. There's what that will look like. So I'm going to put this down to the single thread. And what that does, like I said before, it doesn't have as many strikeovers to make it, looks more like a long arm quilting stitch. Whereas if you leave it on the other setting, it'll make it more like an embroidery stitch. I'm going to turn my outline on. I like having my outlines on. And I'm going to leave the percentage at that. Now this button here, you can actually skew a design. So what that means is it's called random shift. And if I just hit it one over, and there's 3 types, A, B, and C, and that's just something you have to sit and play with. There's 18 possible combinations here. But what it will do, it will distort this design a little bit. So let's just try this one, B1. Check it out. Click on OK. Now it's going to apply that. And it just distorted it just a little bit. The higher the number, the more pronounced the effect. You can go all the way up to 6. Let's make it all the way up. And then we can see what that does. Now you can see what that did there. It looks totally different than before. So that's something, that's really something, that's another thing you can sit there and play with all day long, truly. I kind of like how that looks. But I'm going to go back and turn it back down. Let's do it on about 3 this time. Better. And what that did, this little motif right here was in the very center of that piece. It offset it. And I think I'm just going to leave it there for this one here. We'll hit set. Okay. Excuse me. And I'm going to make sure my thread cutters are turned off, and they are turned off. Click on OK. And I'm going to pull up my bobbin thread again. No, I won't, because it's still attached on the back because I haven't taken it out of the hoop. So this time, the only time you have to pull up your bobbin thread is the first time you start stitching in the hoop, okay? So I'm just going to hold on to my thread though and hit the start button. This will take 2 minutes is what the screen says to stitch out. And I'm just going to stop it. I'm going to, you do not have to do the fray check thing. I had a quilter many years ago show me that little trick for hand quilting and machine quilting. I do this in all my quilting. Once you start doing it, it really doesn't take that much more time. And hit that. So that part's done. Now I have to rehoop. So I am going to hit my home button to get back to IQ. Now here's the great thing about this particular hoop. I am going to pull out some of this thread. Let me raise my foot and snip the top thread. Because on this hoop, I don't have to take the hoop off of the machine to rehoop. So check this out. I'm going to slide my quilt sandwich forward this way from me towards the back of the machine. So I'm going to remove, let me move this camera a little bit better. There we go. You can see what I'm doing. I'm going to remove this magnet. And now that there's fabric on there, I can pull it up with my hands. It's super easy that way. I have arthritis in my hands, so if I can do this, I know you can. There's that one. I'm also going to take off the rear hoop, this one up here at the very top of the frame. Set it to the side. Now I want to slide it that way, so I'm going to leave these 2 magnets on the sides closest to me. I'm going to leave them attached to the hoop. So I'm going to pull up this one and this one. The 2 big middle ones. I'm reaching around to the backs just so this arm does not block your view. A little bit of a contortionist there. There we go. And now the only 2 magnets I have left are right here. So what I'm going to do, I am going to slide the whole quilt sandwich this way, just by grabbing it right here and pulling on it. Okay, let me try it a different way because I just blocked your view. I'm going to grab it back here and I'm just going to pull on it. And it's the magnets are sliding on the metal rails. No, the fray check does not leave a hard spot, and it does not ever, I've never had fray check stain a piece of quilting fabric, and I've used it for over 25 years. Great question, though. And yes, you could use different colored threads on different sections and fabrics. You can change that color of thread as many times as you want to. I would recommend, however, always using the bobbin thread that'll look nice with whichever quilt backing that you have happened to use. I'm just going to pull this up and have a quick look. That's all good. And now I'm going to start reattaching my magnets. These are all the way up. So I'm going to start over here. I'm going to, the arrow on my magnet right there, it goes towards the needle. So I'm just going to lay this on right there. That's attached. And this one's attached. And then I'll attach this side because now I can smooth if I need to. Maybe hold it to one side, give it a little bit of tautness. And put this one on. There we go. And I'll put this one on down here next. There we go. Then I'm going to put my top magnet on. Okay. Then the bottom magnet on. So as you can see, I did not have to remove that hoop from my frame. I did not have to remove the hoop from the embroidery arm to rehoop. I just slid it. And that's pretty, I think that's pretty awesome. Just get this down a little bit more here. Okay. Now we're ready to scan this hooping in and see what we can get quilted in it. Now I will say this though, you do have a little more control about how to fit these different size pieces inside of your hoop if you take the hoop off. I just wanted to show you though, you don't have to take this hoop off of the machine in order to rehoop. Click on the leaf, image scan, and scan, and okay. And it really depends on your quilt and how big the pieces are as to how many pieces you can actually quilt inside of a hoop. We're going to do 2 more pieces on this one, and then we're going to work on something else. And I can see right now there's 2 pieces I'll be able to quilt on this. On the scan, I'm pretty sure there's 2, yes. 1, 2. Let me just darken this up. Yes, I can totally quilt those 2 pieces, so that's what I'll do next. Now this time, I'm going to do all my drawing and fill both pieces in at one time, and then have it stitch it out. The lines I'm drawing, I do not want to be stitched out, so I turned on the zigzag with the line through it. I'm going to select this line right here. And now I'm going to draw, I'm going to outline around each one of them, but I'm going to use, it's not really cheating, it's just a fast method to do it. So what I'm going to do here, there's the top seam right there. I want a line there. Okay. And there's a horizontal line here. What I really want to match is where these two pieces of fabric meet. Okay. Also right here. There. Now, okay, lighten that up. Now I'm just going to do two long straight lines down each side, and that'll have both pieces completely outlined in. There we go. Bring the camera closer. You can see how that did that. Easy, right? That was pretty fast also. Okay. So now we're ready to pick quilting designs for it, the fun part. We'll go back down here to our Regent Properties menu. Select Quilt Designs. Select. And I'm going to do something totally different on this one. I want to use that chicken wire. So I'm going to put chicken wire in the long rectangle. Click on OK. And up here, I'm going to make sure my fill bucket is highlighted. I'm going to click on that. I likey. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my menu and I'm going to pick out a different pattern for this square right here. Okay. So let's go here, select. And I think on that one, let's see. Got chicken wire. Let's do this basket weave herringbone. That's kind of cool looking. Maybe that one. Or or that one. That one or that. Let's do this one. That's pretty cool. It's like a triple cross hatch. Let's do the triple cross hatch on that one. Right there. Woohoo. Okay, so we're going to select next. Now, when you have two designs on there, it'll have you can see up here which design you're doing the settings on. So the first one is the chicken wire. And all I'm going to do is turn the line thickness to single. I'm going to turn my frame on. That's the only settings I'm going to change on this. Okay. Then I'm going to use this arrow and go to the next one. You can see there it selected the pattern for the square. I'm going to do the same thing for it. Then, and outline on. Okay. And now we're ready to stitch out. We'll click on Set and OK and Embroidery. I'm going to make sure my needle cutters are still off, and they are, thread cutters. And we're ready to stitch that one out. And I'll just hold that thread to the side and hit the start button. I always like to bring up the bobbin thread. Honestly, I forgot to do it that time. So I might have a little thread nest on the back of this quilt, and we're about to find out. Because I'm going to remove this hoop next, and so we can see the back of it and all that fun stuff. But I just want you to see how awesome it looks when you turn off those thread cutters. So I'm actually going to remove the hoop. Remember, we have to use the upper left corner to get it out from under the presser foot. Right there. Let me snip my thread. Now the bobbin thread will still be connected to the back, so I'm just going to tilt this up and give that a cut right here. There we go. And now I can pull it the rest of the way out. If you don't mind little knots on the back of your quilt, you do not have to do that. Now I'm going to bring this up here and tilt it down so you can get a good look at it. There we go. Okay.